All right. So e-commerce wars, how the US is losing the battle. So this is kind of a continuation of the previous article a little bit. In e-commerce wars, Xing Detlefsen, I probably butchered his name, outlines how US small businesses face growing challenges as foreign sellers, particularly from China, dominate platforms like Amazon. These sellers often exploit regulatory loopholes, avoid taxes, and engage in unfair practices like manipulating reviews and undercutting prices, leaving Amazon entrepreneurs or American entrepreneurs at a disadvantage. The article highlights the economic impact of these practices, estimating a 4.75 billion annual tax revenue loss and significant harm to U.S. jobs and innovation. He proposes policy reforms such as withholding taxes from foreign sellers, closing loopholes, and strengthening intellectual property protections to create a fairer marketplace for U.S. sellers. So essentially, the article is going over a lot of what we just talked about in the loopholes that foreign sellers have that U.S. sellers do not have. And there was a really cool graph that I'm going to scroll down to here real quick. So this is an example of the costs that a U.S. seller has: the income taxes, regulatory fees, insurance, import duties and tariffs, and their cost of goods versus the cost that a foreign seller has. And they really can avoid all of those things in red there that a US seller cannot avoid. And so essentially that is why a foreign seller can significantly undercut an American or US based seller on Amazon or any platform, Walmart, wherever the case may be.
Yeah, that's interesting. Although I think getting around import duties and tariffs is going away.
Yep.
Because that was only if it was like, single shipments. Insurance, like if you're doing FBA, you still have to have insurance.
Yeah.
Um,
Amazon has started requiring that more for sellers. So you have to upload your insurance. So that would mean that I don't know how that works though for a non-US based company and what that insurance would look like if they're having to buy insurance from a US based company or if they're just getting some cheap insurance in China and using that, or how that works for foreign. Do you have any idea on that?
so there's an address. It's like something or other Gold Street, Gould, in Sheridan, Wyoming.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a lot of them that are probably registered as Wyoming um, companies because Wyoming has a lot more. What's the word I'm looking for? Uh, Privacy ability.
Yep.
So I
Yeah.
think a lot of them are probably registered as whatever companies in whatever states. Um, and there's a lot of U.S. sellers that, for whatever reason, register in Wyoming. Um, but I have a feeling there's probably a lot of them that, oh, is that the hurdle we need to do? Okay, we'll fill out some form and register with whatever state we need to register with. Whether or not they're doing it the right way, I don't know. But because one thing I've learned, there's a lot of good people in China that I think will play by the rules, but there's a lot of gamesmanship. Like they don't view the U.S. way of doing things as anything they necessarily have to follow.
Yeah.
In a lot
Well, and
of
to be
cases.
fair, US companies do this as well,
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
You open up a foreign company so that you don't have nexus in the US to avoid income taxes and different
Right.
regulatory fees and stuff. So this isn't only China doing this.
Right.
US companies do this as well, and lots of other countries as well. But what it really hurts is anybody, the smaller sellers. And you could consider a smaller seller anybody making, or selling 10, 20, 30, $50 million a year. Anybody who's not big enough to have foreign entities and move money around and
Right.
play that game. Anybody just trying to sell on Amazon and follow the rules, is at a significant disadvantage versus people who are taking advantage of the system. And a couple things that I had highlighted here. So he talks about essentially a parallel economy that operates largely outside of the regulatory and tax frameworks that govern domestic businesses, which is what we've been talking about. If you're a US based seller, a small one especially, you have to abide by all the rules and regulations, where if you're outside the US, in a lot of ways you can get around those regulations. Here's the section that I was looking for. So today's foreign sellers, particularly those based in China, operate under a fundamentally different model that exploits gaps in our regulatory framework. These sellers identify hot products on Amazon, rapidly manufacture copies, or source the same product through local Chinese factories, often circumventing proper customs declarations and tariff payments, ship directly to Amazon's warehouses, manipulate marketplace metrics through fake reviews and targeted attacks on legitimate sellers, and frequently avoid paying US taxes altogether. They can do all of these things because there's no way to hold them legally accountable, as at most they operate under a shell company in the USA. So that Wyoming company that you were talking about.
Right.
And they've got some interesting examples here. So Molson Hart was talking about one of his products where basically this is just kind of a price cutting thing, where the Chinese competitor who knocked off his product just kept lowering the price to basically break even for the two of them, and made the product no longer profitable. But there's some other interesting ones down here. So this is an example of fake reviews going on people's products. And if you just look at these reviews, they're like 1 star, suitable, organic, 1 star, useful,
Right.
pure, 1 star, perfect, organic. It's like, some of those reviews, like, this is the greatest product of all time. 1
Right. It's
star.
useful and pure. 1 star.
Yes. So they definitely play that game, the black hat game of leaving negative reviews against people.